If you've mastered the art of satin stitching in nice straight lines, but now want to go around all those curves and corners, how on earth do you do that? There is a little bit of technique, and that is exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. Who am I? I am Kim. This is Quilt with Kim. You, my lovely, are very, very welcome. Let's start with a piece of paper and a couple of Sharpies. Come with me. So cast your mind back to school and think about curves we have. We have outside a curve, which is called convex, and I'm not going to test you on this. And then we've got inside curves, which are called concave. I always remember that because that bit looks like a cave. This is our appliqué fabric, and then this will be our backing fabric, the fabric that we're putting our appliqué on. So when we are doing our satin stitch, we're going to start pretty much on a straight line. That's what tends to happen. We're going around a straight line and then we come across a curve. So the straight line is easy, and we do our standard satin stitch. Now, I know satin stitches are closer than that. This is just so that you can see and stop me doing 10,000 little lines across here. Okay, if you haven't watched my video on satin stitch, as I said, check out the description below. I'll pop that link there so you can go and find out what measurements you need to set your stitch length and stitch width at to get your satin stitch. So as we're coming along and we're feeding the edge of our applique under our machine, we're doing our standard satin stitch and all is well in our world. When we get to a nice gentle curve like here, that's easy enough to then guide your fabric underneath your foot. And you can gently, as you guide it, you can gently go along. And by the way, I am going to show you on a piece of applique as well, but it is easier to show you what move I'm doing on this paper first, then I'll switch over to the machine and you can see it in action. So as we come around this is a gentle curve, and we can feed that through. But shall I start that sentence again? But you will find that your machine then starts struggling a little bit and it's not going in a smooth line. And as soon as you start detecting that, then what you need to do, as your needle comes to the outside, you have to stop with your needle in the fabric. And as you stop with your needle in the fabric, you twist your fabric. You lift up your pressing foot and you're turning your fabric very slightly and you're doing another stitch. So onto the applique and back out to your background fabric again. Again, you keep your needle into the fabric, you lift your pressing foot slightly and you turn it around a little bit. And that's what you keep doing. However, when it gets to a really steep curve, you're going to find that you end up with a bit of a jaggedy satin stitch going on. And you're not going to want that. I don't know if I've got an example here. Yes, I have. I did this one to show you. And you can see just here, let me just zoom in for a second, because it's good to know what not to do. There we go. So can you see this bit here that I wasn't pivoting enough as I came around this really steep corner? So to avoid this kind of thing happening, what you want is a nice, gentle curve. So to avoid that, we need to... Let's bring that out again. We need to pivot far more often. Excuse me. So as we come up here, you can see already that if I just continue to pivot on that point there, it's going to end up like that, which is exactly what's happened on this little ghost here. It's a cute ghost, isn't it? I got that off just off Google somewhere. If you want applique templates, just go onto Google and look for simple line drawings. You'll get loads. So to stop that happening, because if we then straighten this up, the next thing that's going to happen is we'll stop and we'll come along here and then you'll have a gap and you don't want that. To overcome that then, or to stop that happening, we're going to have our needle in. We're going to pivot. Okay, we'll get it straightened up. We'll bring our needle across and then we stop on the inside and then we do the same thing. We stop, we lift our pressing foot, we pivot a little bit and we bring our needle back we stop, we lift our presser foot, we pivot around the needle and go across. So you're really controlling your machine to go from right to left to stop, to left to right to stop. So doing applique is a really good way to get that full control over your machine. And as you do that, you'll find that my role in life is not to draw zigzags. In fact, if you've been following me for a while, you know it's not to draw anything at all. But you've got the idea. But as you do that, you'll get a nice smooth satin stitch. And as you get back to a gentle curve again, at that point, you can gently feed it through without all the pivoting. Now, when you get to an inner curve, let's change my Sharpie and show you. When you get to an inner curve, it's actually on the same side of the fabric. It's on the background fabric that we're stopping. So again, we've got a gentle curve here, so we can do our gentle satin stitching by gently moving our fabric as the satin stitch is going. But then we get to a steep part, so we want to stop on this background fabric here. We want to lift our presser foot slightly, we pivot, we bring our needle across. And then if it's still quite gentle, we can come back to do the full stitch. But if it's getting tight, we need to stop at each side. So again, we'd stop with our needle in the fabric, we'd lift our presser foot up very slightly, just bring our fabric round, we'd come back, we'd stop, we'd lift up our presser foot, we'd bring our fabric round, we'd bring it back, stop, lift our presser foot, move it slightly. So all the time you're doing a stop, lift up your presser foot, and a very gentle, tiny little movement of your applique, or your fabric rather, so that each stitch lines up underneath the one above it. And by doing that, you'll get a nice, smooth satin stitch as you come round all the curves. And down the whole, this is what happened on my little ghost here, that you get nice, smooth satin stitches going round the curves. So let's talk about how to get your applique ready for your curvy satin stitch and then get the machine out. And I'll show you quickly on the machine as well. Before we do anything, we need to put stabilizer on the back. And this is just a stitch and tear stabilizer. And if you haven't used it before, the idea is that it literally stabilizes the fabric. It's quite tough. It's like paper, so you can tear it. So when you've done your satin stitching, you would tear this off when you finish. And careful not to put all your satin stitches out like I just did. It's there. It's very satisfying to do. That is your stabilizer. And the reason that you want to put that in place is because when you do the satin stitch without a stabilizer, look what happens on this. Now, this was just a little test piece that I was doing to check out my stitch width. But you can see here, can you see how it's gathered up the fabric and it's almost bunched it up underneath? Can you see that? Let's try and get it at a bit of an angle. Can you see it's like a little, almost like a little tunnel? In fact, if I hold it further away, you can see it. It's gathering the fabric together, and you don't want that at all. And that's because there is no stabilizer on the back of this. So before you do any applique at all, and in fact, it doesn't matter what type of applique stitch you're doing, stick some stabilizer on the back. It's really cheap, but it's an amazing thing to have in your sewing room. So get that on the back. Then the other thing is you want to be testing the width of your satin stitching. Get the width that you want. I've covered that in far more detail in the beginner video that I've linked down below. You can see here I've been testing different, in fact it was that way around, I've been testing different widths from there to find out what width I want and what length I want. So the width is design and how wide it is, and your length is how far apart. So can you see here that those stitches are quite wide apart, and then as I adjusted my stitch length, it got closer together. So that is your true satin stitch there. So you want to be practicing it a little bit first, just to find out what is the right width for you and the right length for you. And having established that, then you get your applique is all prepared, and you've got your stabilizer on the back. You just put it in place. You can get an iron-on stabilizer now, which just comes off. It's got a light tap to it, so you can iron it on. You can do your applique, and then you can take it off afterwards. It doesn't really matter. It's personal preference. I use this particular one, which is just a slight pin on in the corners. And then that does the job fine. I can tear it off afterwards. And by the way, the stabilizer, just before I get the machine out, when you tear all these bits off, don't throw them away, because you'll be surprised how often you use even the little bits and pieces of stabilizer for doing your buttonholes or just small pieces of mending or fixing or whatever. So keep all the bits that come out. Let's get the machine out and I'll show you how to do satin stitching on there. I'm going to use a really dark thread so that you can see what I am doing. I apologise for a slight little fuzziness because the camera is more interested in the flowers than the foot here, but I think you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Now, I've got my open toe foot on, so you need the wider foot rather than your standard foot. I've set this machine up at a 6mm stitch width and a 0.3mm stitch length if you want to follow along with my settings. But as I said, test it on your machine and see which width and length that you want. So I've done my testing and I'm now ready to go. Now you can see here that it goes. I've got a little straight bit here, and then as I come forward, there's a curve, and then we come into a steep curve. So let me show you about that, and then I'll stop, and then I'll go. Then I will go over to a sharp in the curve as well. Okay, so let me put that down. What I've discovered is that if I get the edge of my applique just on the inside of this little plastic bit on the presser foot here, that's just where it all lines up for me. But it's up to you. The rule is, well, it's not really a rule. It's the guidance, is have 75% of your stitch over on your applique, and then the 25% or the quarter on your background fabric. But, you know, it's up to you and then what you're going for. But that's generally the guidance. Let me get my needle down and let's start going. Okay. Now you can see here, I'm going nicely over the edge of my fabric. And then as I'm coming to the gentle curve, all I need to do at this point, I can gently move my fabric around just with the machine as it's stitching to get a gentle curve. But it's now pulling, and I can sense that it's going to really struggle to get me a nice smooth stitch. So this is where I start needing to pivot. Now it's stopped on the inside. I'm just going to stop on the inside for a minute, and I'm going on the applique. I'm going to lift up my presser foot. I'm going to turn it slightly. Did you see that? It's very slight. I'm putting my presser foot down. I'm going to do a stitch. Okay. I'm going to stop on the outside. I'm lifting my presser foot, turning it slightly, putting my presser foot down, doing another stitch. If you think it's turning into a straighter bit, so can you see how that applique, just for about a quarter of an inch, maybe half an inch, is straight on to my foot there. It's only a short amount, but if that's there and I'm happy with it, I will just do that a little bit. But as I'm coming up to the curve, that's now going to pull against, and I can see that if I carried on, it won't work. So let me show you, if I carry on and show you what happens if I just keep gently pulling it around. It'll probably work beautifully. Just it's really struggling. Okay. Well, what I'm doing actually is making sure that the bit of edge of that fabric is right on in the middle of my foot there. It's not actually the easiest. It might come out a little bit better than I was maybe. but it is woman versus machine now. Well, I'll look at it in a minute to see how it comes out. I can see it's a big jagged. I'll show you in a second. So I'm coming up to a curve. I'm actually going to stop and guide it round. So my needle is in. This is where if you've got a machine where you can program it to always stop with your needle in, that's actually best for all sewing, because anytime you want to turn around corners or pivot, you need your needle in the machine to pivot around that. Sorry, your needle in the fabric to pivot around. My needle is stopped in the fabric. I'm going to do one stitch. I'm lifting, I'm turning, I'm doing one stitch. I'm lifting, I'm turning, I'm doing one stitch. Okay, needle's in the fabric, I lift, I turn, I'm doing one stitch. And as I'm doing this, can you see how every time I turn, the edge of my applique is lining up? I need a sharp, pointy stick. What have I got? Scissors. The edge of this applique here is lining up almost in a straight line to the middle of my open toe foot there. And that's what you're aiming for all the time. Don't worry about any of this there. Just worry about this little bit, quarter of an inch, half an inch in front of you, and stitch that. Okay, so let's do one stitch, pivot and turn, one stitch, pivot and turn, one stitch. Okay, it's easing up. So I can actually do the whole of the stitch, pivot and turn. Again, I think that's gentle enough now to come all the way around. Okay, and it's fighting me. Can you see how it's coming off at an angle this way? And if I start lifting and turning now, or if I start just smoothing it around, it will get really jaggedy. So I want to lift and turn and just do one stitch. Lift, turn, one stitch. Lift, turn, one stitch. Lift, turn, one stitch. Actually, when you're doing it and you haven't got me talking at you, it's actually quite meditative. So if you got it, just turn me off and go for it. Okay. So that's it. Now we're coming up to a really sharp little curve here. So I'm going to approach this in exactly the same way, but we're really concentrating on which way our fabric is curving and when my needle is going or where our needle is going. So again, we're looking at the edge of our applique and where is it going in my foot. I always want the edge of my applique where my stitches are going to be in the middle of my foot. That's where you're aiming for. So we are going to take a stitch, turn it just a gnat's whisker. You know, if you've been following me for a little while, you know I like technical gnat's whisker. Talking of whiskers, it's a bit of a leap. What do you think of the hair, by the way? This is. If you've been following me, you'll know I've always had straight hair. I have straightened my hair for years, like forever. But this is actually my actual real hair. Who knew? So I've stopped on the right. I'm going to pivot, do one stitch to the left, pivot, one stitch to the right. And how I'm making the decision all the time, I'm looking at where is the edge of the applique in relation to the middle of my foot. And if you're looking at that all the time, and it's micro adjustments, little micro adjustments. And if you do those micro adjustments, you'll find that you can easily go around. The other thing, I'm just going to throw in that you'll notice my glasses are on top of my head because I should have them on, but I've got a camera in the way and you can see it on the screen. I've got about a half-inch gap looking between my camera and the foot to try and show you what to do, and I keep knocking it with my arm. So there's my arm where I'm holding the precipice, lifting the precipice, and my camera is just above it. So let's carry on. Right, lift, turn, needle in, lift, turn. I forgot where I'm going. You need to remind me where I'm going. Right, I'm going to stop on the applique. You're going to turn slightly, come to the background fabric, lift, turn slightly, and it's a minute adjustment. Stop on the applique, lift and turn. But I'm going to go quiet for a moment because I'll speed this bit up as I go around this corner. Well, considering the circumstances of the inch viewing panel that I have to see, it actually has come out quite well. You can see here how I've done stop, turn, stop, turn, stop, turn, stop, turn. So you can see that, how we get a nice smooth curve coming around the inner. And again, as we're coming around the head of our little ghost here. And basically, that's how you're going to approach all your curves, whether you've got a nice big smoother curve or whether you've got these really tight inside curves. All the time you are concentrating on where your needle is and you're adjusting appropriately. Now, look at this bit here, just at the top. Do you remember I was saying, I'm just going to carry on and see how it's going. Let me zoom in so that you can see. Oh, I have zoomed in maximum to maximum. I'll hold it up. So can you see here? This is the bit that I was just going around and saying, oh, I think it might be okay. But actually it wasn't. You can see we've got some gapping occurring here. And we don't really want that. I know it all looks gappy right close up to the camera. It's actually okay when you hold it away. When you're not doing the stopping and pivoting and stopping and pivoting, that stopping and pivoting keeps it close together, but following it around the curve, you would automatically get a wider gap in between your stitches, which is what we want to try and avoid. So when you get to your curves, stop and pivot unless it's a really gentle curve like here, and you can see how this is pretty much stayed together. I hope that helped you get some confidence in knowing where your needle is going to go when you're approaching your curve. In another video, I'm going to show you how to do a blanket stitch, because that's a whole exercise in itself, and it doesn't matter with your curve. Well, it is curves and corners. That's where the problem is. So I'll show you that in a separate video, and I'll show you how to do satin stitch around corners in a separate video as well, because that is like a whole tutorial in and of itself. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and I love you and leave you fat, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.